Hello grade 12s. So in this video I'm going to be talking to you about the SAGS document and why the SAGS document is a very important document for both your studying purposes and for you to be able to map the road ahead for yourself, and then also as a supplement to if you do miss any lessons for whatever reason it is, so that you have an understanding of what you need to know as a student that will come up in examinations. So what is the SAGS document? So this is something that is provided by the IEB as a subject assessment guideline. So SAGS, that's what it is. It basically tells us as teachers, or dictates what we should be teaching you from a content perspective that can be examined and will be examined. So obviously everything that is in this document, you won't have an exam on everything, but anything that is in this document can potentially be examined. So that being said, there won't be anything that is not in this document in your examinations. So it's kind of like a cheat sheet for you. You're able to see these are the sort of things that I will get asked questions on, which is kind of nice. The only place where it does become slightly unknown for you is when you get to case studies or in your paper 2 talking about the essay. So there you can potentially have an example of a case study or a situation that you won't have studied or learned before, but is linked to a section of content where you have to use the information that you have been given here to help answer the questions that are there. So although you haven't studied it in depth, you will be able to use what is given. So how is this document set out? So what we do is we separate these into the different strands of life sciences. So remember, you have 4 different strands. So you have strand 1, which is environmental studies, and for grade 12 you are doing population and community ecology. And then strand 2 is life processes in plants and animals. So for grade 12 that consists of chemical coordination and reproduction. So reproduction being plant reproduction, animal reproduction strategies, and human reproduction. And then strand 3 is life at a molecular, cellular, and tissue level. So for grade 12, that is the 3 sections of DNA, genetics, and genetic engineering. And then the final strand for you guys is diversity, change, and continuity, which for grade 12 involves evolutionary theory and hominid studies. So you should be using this document for all of your subjects really, because every subject has their own SAGS guideline. So this in particular is the one for life sciences, so it will be very specific to life sciences itself. For different subjects they will have different guidelines which you would need to interpret, so that you would need to know what is going to be examined. So how do we look at this document? So the first thing that you can see is that under each strand we have 3 different columns. So aptly named as for aim 1, aim 2, and aim 3. So what do each of these aims mean? So there's a little explanation under each of them. So the best place to start for each of them is really aim 1, which is knowing life sciences. So this is your basic content. This is the rote learning stuff. This is the basis from which all of the knowledge is going to spring from. So these are the things that you should be able to potentially name, define, explain, describe. All those kind of things are done from this aim 1. So as an example, if I'm looking at population ecology, it has that candidates should know the definition of individual, population, community, and ecosystem. So for example, we know from this in terms of our normal population studies that we could take further from an ecosystem to biosphere. But because it is not listed under the SAGS here, you do not have to know biosphere as one of those aspects that you need to know. Then we go to aim 2. So aim 2 is your practical section here. So this is called investigating phenomena in life sciences. So in the SAGS document, a lot of the times this will stipulate where you as a student throughout your year of schooling could go and do these kind of practical things. So for example, in the environmental studies section is where you go and you can actually go out into an actual environmental situation, go and collect samples, do an analysis, write a report, all those kind of things. This is not the sort of thing that will come up in an examination perspective. However, the scientific method here would. But there are other areas, such as if I look here, looking at the mark recapture technique or using these ones, population graphs, calculations. Those are examples of something that could actually be brought up in an actual test or exam situation. Then we come to aim 3, which is essentially your applied section. This is where you don't need to know these particular things in depth as you knew from an aim 1 perspective, but you should be able to have a discussion or have a basic understanding around them. This is the sort of thing where you could be given a case study from these perspectives, taking information from an aim 1 that you need to apply to a new unknown situation. Those are the sort of things. So for example, in our environmental studies, we've got debate the decision to intervene and control community structures, such as the culling of elephants. So it could be that you are given an example of culling of elephants, but you could be given something else where maybe you've got an invasive species that is coming in and you are told to argue about should we or should we not control this community by cutting it down. So what you need to be doing, particularly in this aim 3 section, is you need to have these conversations with yourself. You need to be able to debate both sides of something. So the example here is giving culling of elephants. You need to be giving yourself the conversation to say, can I argue for yes, we should be, and what points potentially could I be arguing from? Or no, we should not be, and what sort of points should I be arguing from? Again, this is generic. You are not going to be able to know every single situation in the world where we have to intervene or control a community structure. But as long as you have the basic idea, you will be able to take information that you've had from aim 1 and apply it to the aim 3. Another example that we have here, environmental impact assessments. What is the role of population studies in these, for example, in indicator species? So remember, an indicator species is something that we did back in grade 10 and 11. So you need to remind yourself of this content. However, it is not aim 1. So I will not ask you to define what is an indicator species. It is essentially given that you know what this is and you have to apply it to this kind of situation. So as a little brief summary again, take your aim 1s. These are your base content, things you need to be able to name, define, describe, explain, the base content that you have. Anything aim 2 is practical skills based, things that you need to physically do, something like a calculation or a drawing or identifying, put in an order, something along those lines. And then the aim 3 is your applied situations that you don't need to memorize or know all the potential iterations of, but you need to have some basic understanding of where this can potentially fit in. One little extra note as I finish, the SAGS document that gets sent to us is updated every year. So we get an update every year to see if there's any revisions or any changes that happen. So if you do so if you look down here at the bottom, I've got here IEB to 2020. So it shows that the latest version comes here from 2020 and the information date was from January 2020. So if you are using this document for any subject that you're doing, make sure that you get the most up-to-date version to make sure that you are doing the correct syllabus and that you are not learning something unnecessarily, or to make sure that you have all the necessary information at your hand. If you need help understanding this, you know where to find me. Otherwise, just hit me up on the Skype handle or come and organize a meeting with me, and we will be able to have a more in-depth discussion about this. See you later.